The Dolphins entered 2023 looking to rewrite how the season prior was supposed to go. In case you were wondering, it started out with a strong 3-0 start, but unfortunately, concussion issues to their starting quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, didn't allow the team to reach its full potential in 2022 and were one and done in the playoffs by the Buffalo Bills. So in 2023, in last offseason, they didn't have a lot of money to spend, nor a lot of draft capital to spend. So all they can really do was game plan and, more importantly, hope to stay healthy for a better run this past season. So when you look at what went right for this team this past season, you have to look at the most obvious thing, and that was this red-hot Miami offense, because Miami flashed it early last year in 2022, and they amped it up to a 10th degree this past season in 2023. They became a scoring juggernaut that would put up a lot of yards and a lot of points in a flurry. You look at the passing offense with Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. Tua would have his best season yet, managing to play a full season and throwing to a full complement of weapons that I just mentioned. And you just look at the running game of Devontae Achane and veteran Raheem Mostert, and as well as Jeff Wilson. They formed a strong 1, 2, 3 backfield to balance out the offense. And speaking of Tyreek Hill, he was the MVP of this offense. He made it flow. Without him, you don't get anywhere with this Miami offense. Tyreek Hill had a career year in which he nearly broke Calvin Johnson's receiving record. And yeah, this Miami team, it seemed like it was gonna make a deep playoff run. It was gonna give the Buffalo Bills a run for the money in the AFC East. Unfortunately, though, that's pretty much where it ends for the Dolphins, because that juggernaut offense never showed up against real competition. They were just basically beating up scrubs in not just the AFC, but the NFC as well. Because, yeah, that juggernaut offense, they always no-show. They're basically they're almost non-existent against the big boys like the Ravens, the Bills. Who else was there? The Ravens. Because reason as to why they, like I said, the reason why they played so well was the scrubs. When it came to facing the big boys, they were a completely different team. They couldn't run the ball. Tua made some very bad throws under pressure. He also took a lot of sacks. And another reason why they did so poor against some really good teams was that the defense was one of the worst in the leagues, and in not just the pass rush, but also in their secondary against that same top competition that I just mentioned, like the Bills, the Ravens, the Chiefs, their quarterbacks. They gave up a ton of yards and a lot of points to those teams. And heck, there was even one point in the season where they played a bottom feeder team in the Tennessee Titans, and they gave up a lot of points. Not a lot of points, but a lot of yards to Will Levis. Will Levis of all quarterbacks. And they actually got beat by that team. So this can be attributed to not just their disappearing offense, but their passing defense that was missing their assignments, and their defense as a whole getting beat up by injuries, especially late in the season. They were losing players to season-ending injuries, especially torn ACL injuries late in the season. So what do you combine all that into? Another late season collapse and another first-round exit from the Miami Dolphins. So they lost a winnable game to the Tennessee Titans, and they lost must-win games against the Baltimore Ravens in blowout fashion, and in a winner gets the AFC East game against the Bills. They lose that game in a game that they could have won, but they blow that away. They blow that game away, and while the Bills get to go home, host the Steelers, the Dolphins, who are a warm weather team, they have to go to Kansas City and play in one of the coldest games in NFL history against Mahomes and the Chiefs. And they didn't do so well. They couldn't adapt to the cold temperatures. And they lost again in the first round of the playoffs. So the Dolphins, they had the potential to unseat the Bills in the AFC East and make a solid playoff run, host a playoff game with their lethal offense. Unfortunately, they once again fell apart in the final month of the season. Only this time, they have no one to blame but themselves for their 11-6 record, their late season collapse, because no one showed up when the lights were bright, especially Tua Tagovailoa and that offense. Now, it can't be denied, Miami's going to be a contender in a wild AFC for probably many years to come. They really have to take themselves seriously this offseason. Like, it's ongoing, but they really have to like seriously continue to make their commitments to their problem areas on a specific side of the ball. If they want to get past the first round, get to the divisional, and maybe even to the AFC Championship game under head coach Mike McDaniel. So when you look at this offseason, that was going to be easier said than done, because initially they had around $28 million in cap space in the red. So yeah, they were in the red before free agency started, and well, they had to make some cost-cutting moves. So looking at some of their key free agents, you had defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. Unfortunately, they lost him to the Las Vegas Raiders for a big fat contract. And speaking of big fat contracts, they unfortunately let this guy go. Guard Robert Hunt signed with the Carolina Panthers for a ridiculous big fat $100 million contract. Like, huh? Like, excuse me? $100 million for a lineman? I mean, no disrespect, but it's like that much. But anyway, he might be a good lineman though, but that much. But anyway, we're looking at linebacker Andrew Van Ginkel, a key part of that Miami defense. He signed on with the Minnesota Vikings, and edge rusher Jerome Baker signed on with the Seahawks. So pretty much all the key free agents went to different teams because, well, their cap space. They had no money to spend until they made some cost-cutting moves. And looking at their first-round draft pick, they are picking 21st. And looking at the moves that they already made, speaking of cap-cutting moves, they had to release corner Xavier Howard, center Connor Williams, and a lot of others to clear cap space and make some moves to make. Looking at some of their free agent signings, you look at the likes of Jordan Brooks to a 3-year deal. You look at corner Kendall Fuller, and then you look at edge rusher Shaq Barrett from the Tampa Bay Bucks. And an interesting one, Jordan Poyer, who got released by the Bills, and they signed it on the new center, Aaron Brewer. So they made some key investments on the defensive side of the ball. So not bad and getting them kind of on the cheap, per se, if you're Miami. So looking at some of the things that they have to do for the rest of this offseason as we look towards the NFL draft. Speaking of the draft, you got to find Christian Wilkins replacements. I say replacements with an S, because that interior defensive line was a serious issue because it had such difficulty creating pressure and sacking the quarterback from within. Losing Wilkins will make that even harder if they don't replace him. So the Dolphins got to use their first round draft pick on a defensive tackle, and they got to find another one as his running mate. And going on the opposite side of the trenches, the offensive line, they got to keep addressing that. Now I get that they already addressed the center spot with signing Aaron Brewer to a 3-year deal. They have to upgrade at the rest of the spots around him. Upgrade at left guard, upgrade at right guard. It's got to be an absolute must in order for Tua to have another fully healthy season. Keep him protected up front. So for the Miami Dolphins, they looked good and played good, like as if they were the best team in the NFL for a good part of this season. But when the lights got too bright for them, when they played all these good teams like Josh Allen and the Bills, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they got exposed for who they really were. And that was frauds. So Miami, so far, they seem like they've done a good job addressing the problem areas that failed them in 2023. But whether those additions can execute in 5 months' time when we get to preseason and then into the regular season, that will be telling of whether the Dolphins can finally do some real damage in the AFC.